Now, I'm doing a video series on how to join the ABS and what is required to join the ABS, including getting your Journeyman Smith and Master Smith ratings. But before we get to that, I figured I'd do a little video on whether or not you should join the ABS. And that's because I get this question all the time. People ask me why I join the ABS, why do you bother, what does the ABS do, what do you get out of the ABS, should I join the ABS? And so I figured that this little video is going to help you make your decision. Now, at its core, the ABS's whole job is to continue the art of the forged blade. It is the American Bladesmith Society, but it is one of the only internationally recognized bladesmithing societies in the world. So if you're a bladesmith who likes forging blades, it is probably the one place that you go to for a lot of your information, whether or not you actually know it or not. Most of the guys that you follow probably are members of the ABS or have been members of the ABS, or are looking to join the ABS. So why do so many people join the ABS, and what does it do for us? One of the first things I think of when I think of the ABS and why I joined was the community, right? So it is one of the only internationally recognized bladesmithing associations in the world. And so therefore, it is the hub for so many different makers around the world, including here in Australia, in South Africa, in many parts of Europe, in South America. There are members everywhere, and being a member of the ABS means that you have access to those people through stuff like the ABS forum, which is accessed through the ABS membership website. And also, just being a member of the ABS means that you have an in to talk to everyone that you're talking to, because you can say, hey, I'm a member of the ABS and I'm looking to go down the ABS Journeyman Smith path. And people are going to talk to you because they are on that path, or they've been on that path, they are a member of that community. If you're not a member of that community, then they're more likely going to talk to you anyway because they're all really nice people, but it just gives you that extra level of, you know, I am part of this community that we are all a part of, and therefore we all want to help each other succeed. The other thing is, of course, with access to the community, you have access to education and courses and stuff like that that are accessed only by people who are in the ABS or people who are pursuing that ABS path. And those can be incredibly helpful to a bladesmith's progression, whether or not you want to become a Journeyman Smith or Master Smith down the line. It just means that you have that extra level of push. And with access to people who carry ratings, who carry Journeyman Smith and Master Smith ratings, you understand what that means. You understand what they have done to achieve that rating. You know that they have achieved a certain level of productive prowess or artistry that means that they have a right to talk to you about the things they're talking to you about. If you talk to someone who is a fairly good bladesmith but hasn't passed those tests, you're only relying on the work that you can see in front of you, or the work that they've put online, or just through word of mouth. And so while you can have a bladesmith who is better than Master Smith quality outside of the ABS, because they haven't passed that rigorous testing and because they haven't got that accreditation that has, been well publicized all over the place, you're only relying on the word of others. To that point, standards are a thing. Now, we all have a standard for what we all call a good knife, and everyone's different. Everyone has a different idea of what a good knife means. But having a standardization of what makes a good knife within a community means that we can all collectively understand what makes a good knife maker. And so therefore, with the ABS having a standard for its knives, whether they be Journeyman Smith or Master Smith tested knives, then we have a standard with which to approach our knife making, right? So having those standards means that we all endeavor to do better. So I know that, in order to pass Journeyman Smith testing, I needed to pass a certain list of requirements, which are listed openly for everyone to read on the ABS website. And so therefore, I know that I need to fight to get better. And the more time I spend around that community that I was talking about in number one, the more I see how much I can improve, how much I can learn, and from those people I learn so much. And so with those standards in place, and knowing that I'm going to have to put knives in front of judges and have them judged according to those criteria, I know that I need to excel, I need to push myself. And so it's a good way to incentivize people to push their limits, to push the abilities that they have to the nth degree. If you are just working by yourself and not part of a community that does accreditation and testing, then the only person who can give you a yes or no answer on whether or not you're good is either your customers or yourself. And while that works for, most knife makers, it's just that extra level in the ABS that you have been pushed to that allows people to excel. And this is why we see mastersmiths like Kyle Royer and stuff like that making some of the best cutlery on the planet. Basically, the last point is the name. The American Bladesmith Society is everywhere. It is international. Everyone knows about it. Everyone's heard about it because of Forged in Fire. There have been several mastersmith judges, and there have been mastersmiths that have performed, tests and stuff on the show. And so the ABS carries with it a certain cachet. And obviously, with the testing being so broadly publicized as well, there's a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that of people performing these tests. And a lot of the people in our community who are the height of making are people who are mastersmiths in the ABS. People like Jerry Fisk and Lynn Ray and all of these guys that you regularly see their photos of their work posted on Blade Magazine and all this kind of stuff. It is so within the public eye, right? It is the most visual that our kind of knife-making community gets, that being a member of the ABS and going through the Journeymansmith and Mastersmith ratings, even if you do not plan on continuing your work as an ABS Mastersmith in education or in, like doing the Mastersmith auction knives and all that kind of stuff, even if you never approach a blade show again, carrying the Mastersmith label means that you have passed those tests and you have something that pretty much everyone who's even come into slight contact with the community knows what that means, right? So the average public, Joe Blow on the street will know what a mastersmith is if they've watched Forged in Fire, because they know that Jay Nielsen is one and Jason Knight is one, and all of those guys that have been on the show that are one have all been fantastic makers who have made these amazing knives, and so that is associated with you, and so therefore brings your work to the wider audience. And when you become a journeyman smith, most of the journeyman smiths that I've spoken to have found an increase in their popularity, an increase in the knowledge of them existing. There is a list of journeyman smith and mastersmiths on the ABS website if you're interested in finding out if there is a local one. So knowing that you've passed those tests and knowing that you are a member of this really large international community that has a very stringent set of standards for its makers means that you have that cachet on your shoulders as well. You have that kind of mantle of responsibility, but also that show of I am a member of this community that actually has a set of standards that I have managed to achieve. And so therefore you have a certain amount of regality. I don't know, you'd have whatever you want to call it, but at the end of the day, you have the ability to say, I have passed this amount of tests and I have done all of this kind of stuff and I'm a member of this community that holds me to a certain standard. And so therefore I will continue to provide that standard. If you don't, the community will hold you to account, and it does on occasion. So, it's worthwhile in that aspect. So after explaining that, the question is, should you? Well, if you like forging knives, not knife making, unfortunately, because the American Bladesmith Society is about forging blades, not about stock removal. But if you like forging blades, if you want to become better known, if you want to hold yourself to a high standard and you want to actually, improve in your craft by communicating with other people who have been on that same journey or are on that same journey, then yeah. I mean, there's nothing that says that you have to go for journeyman. You can join as an apprentice smith and stay in as an apprentice smith your entire life. You never have to go for journeyman. And if you make journeyman, you don't have to go for master. I know several knife makers who are never going to go for their mastersmith rating. I know that Bruce Barnett, a good friend of mine, has decided that he's no longer going to go for MS because he wants to make folders, and you can't only pass your MS with folders. And so therefore he's decided, nope, that's what I'm doing. I am a JS. But he still carries that cachet of the community, and so therefore he doesn't have to worry about whether or not people know that his work is good. At the end of the day, I think that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages being that people seem to think that it's very cliquey and that, like it's an old boys club. That hasn't been the case in as far as I've seen. There are a lot of older guys as members of the community, especially in the mastersmith category. That's because they've been doing this for a very long time, and that's how they became mastersmiths. But there are a lot of young makers joining every year, and there are a lot of young makers making journeyman smith, and there are a lot of young makers making mastersmith. I mean, Kyle Royer is the same age as I am, and he made mastersmith when he was like 21. So it's definitely not an old boys club, and it's definitely not a clique as far as anyone is concerned. And the standards aren't just for European style knives. You can make Asian style knives in the ABS. There is no limitation to what kind of knife you can make. The standards are based on fit and finish. The reason that you see a lot of Western based knives is because it's a Western style community. If you want to make Eastern style knives, you want to make Turkish Jambia and Kandar and all that kind of stuff, go for it. Do it. Love it. But the thing is that at the end of the day, The only reason that you see what you see is because that is what people are making. If you make something else and you make it to their standard, that will be what you see. And that's why Liam Hoffman made that Yataghan and all that kind of stuff that made, you know, the front page of Blade magazine. At the end of the day, they're not about trying to tell you exactly what a knife should be. They're about telling you how a knife should be made. So with that being in mind, if you want to join, join. If you don't want to join, don't. It's that simple. But if I had a say in it, it helps me to guide myself to an example that I need to follow, right? It means that I know where my standards are set and how I need to go about approaching that making in the future. And it helps me push myself to be a better knife maker. It's not the journey for everyone, but again, if you want to, I would highly recommend it. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and you want to see the videos on how to get into the ABS and what it requires, then please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell icon to be notified when I upload new videos. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to my patrons. They actually are the ones who inspired this series of videos, and they're the ones that keep a hammer in my hand and gas in my tank, so without them, this channel would not exist. If you want to support me on Patreon, the links will be down in the description below, and they'll also be in the cards up above and in the end card at the end of the video. With that being said, I hope you have a fantastic week. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and if you do, make sure to catch it on film and send it to me so I can laugh at your mistakes. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.